when you're in that interaction with someone and you're having an interaction with yourself. And when you do things that cool the temperature, you're being compassionate to both parties. You're not giving it all to them. You're definitely being compassionate to yourself, but they also get some benefit from it.
Welcome to the Lara Jane Layton Show. This podcast is for you, the person who keeps putting others first. Your self-talk has held you back. You no longer need to take a second seat. Let's explore ways to overcome self-doubt. You can silence that inner bully voice and achieve your full potential. Here's your host, Lara Jane.
Welcome to the show, friend. Our best friend, Janette, is back with us. I am so excited. She just always has so much wisdom to share with us. And this time, we're going to talk about self-compassion and how once we're strong and fluid with our self-compassion, how it can flow out into that compassion we share for others. And this is such an important topic. I'm just really excited for it. But before we dive down into all the weeds, we're going to get a quick word from our sponsor. And when we come back, Janet's going to help us learn to be more compassionate. We'll be right back. Hey, since I rarely have openings in my coaching schedule, I have a new resource out there on my website. It is called the BFF Coaching Network. And I have offered a spot there for any coach that has been on the show to list their coaching. You can go out there, you can listen to their episodes, you can feel a little bit about them, and then choose a coach that will work for you. So LaraJaneLayton.com, the BFF Coaching Network. All right, Janette, the information about you is in the show notes and all the links that we talk about. So let's get started because, I really feel like I had a hard time being compassionate to myself. I could forgive others, but I'd beat myself up forever. And when I finally learned how to be kinder and more compassionate with myself, I was actually nicer to other people.
Not surprising. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, by the way. And yes, I am, one of the things that I work with all the time with my clients regularly show up in a state of kind of almost apologizing for being who they are. And I am regularly talking with people about being more self-compassionate and about it's not just valuable for ourselves, it's valuable for the whole world. And it's so counterintuitive because so many of us have been raised to prioritize other people's needs and to make sure we twist ourselves into a pretzel in order to fit in. And as a consequence, we end up with all of these rules in our head about how we're supposed to be a certain way or be perfect before we've deserved to have compassion. And of course, when you add to that the whole, the phenomenon of the world at the moment, which feels really chaotic, the world feels very harsh. We see a lot of suffering around us, and we sort of it feels like we've got two options. Either we lean in even harder on being very giving all the time and trying to help everybody and try to carry the burden of the world on our shoulders, or we turn away completely because our compassion is so depleted. We've got nothing left for ourselves. We've got nothing left for the world. And I think there's a much better way of finding the balance and finding the sweet spot, because draining your own compassion so that there's nothing left for anyone else or for yourself, that's not the answer. And turning your back on the suffering because it's just too painful also isn't the answer, because in the end, we are wired for empathy. So when we turn our back on the suffering and we know it's happening, we still feel the pain of it. So all of that adds up to being a kind of a psychic pressure, an energetic pressure, and an emotional pressure that doesn't feel like compassion at all. And so for me, the answer is always, wherever in doubt, add more compassion. But we need to be really strategic about it. And that's where when we can think about this in a very strategic way and be quite tactical with it and quite deliberate, I think that's when the self-compassion part becomes easier and more accessible.
Yeah, and maybe what is the definition of compassion? What is it do that I even mean when I say be compassionate? Does that mean that no matter what somebody's doing, I have to be forgiving? Does that mean no matter what's going on, I have to stand up in front of somebody and say, be nice? What is that definition of compassion?
Well, I am a word nerd. I love words. I have had a very checkered career, including a time as a freelance writer, and I still get obsessed about words. And one of the things I always love to do is exactly this, to define what does this word actually mean, whatever it is we're working with. And with compassion, it comes to us through Old French, but originally it starts out with Latin roots. And there are two parts to the word. There's the part com, which means with, and we see it in all kinds of areas. Communication is an example. It just means with. It's just a prefix meaning with. And the second part, passion, comes from the Latin root pati, P-A-T-I, which means to suffer. And we still see it in English in a very specific, very narrow context. We see the word passion meaning to suffer in the liturgical spaces, in the church documents when we talk about the passion of the Christ. We're not talking about the passion of the Christ being his passion for helping people. We're talking literally about the suffering. That's what it means in that context. So when we think about compassion, it means to suffer with. And what it means is it means we look at a creature that is in pain. And that can be a human creature, an animal creature. But we look at a creature in pain, and there is literally a part of our brain that wires up. We have these mirror neurons in our brains. We share that with all the primates. And what it means is when we witness, somebody from our species doing something, including suffering, our brain lights up as though we're doing that thing. We can't help it. It's literally wired into us. So we have compassion wired into us in the sense that when we witness somebody going through the process of suffering in some way, our brain lights up as though we were experiencing that as well. And I think that's one of the reasons that self-compassion can feel a bit weird, because I'm not witnessing another creature, I'm witnessing my own self-suffering. And how does that even work? There's a researcher called Dr. Kristen Neff who does a lot of this work around self-compassion. And I really like the way she frames it, where she says you have to remind yourself, first of all, you are also a creature that is in pain and that is suffering. And so there is no reason not to feel that same sense of compassion. And compassion doesn't mean condoning. It doesn't say, well, I feel compassion for your suffering, therefore I support what you're doing as a result of your suffering. It simply says, I witness your suffering and I choose how I'm going to respond to that suffering from a compassionate stance. So we often think of compassion as simply feeling sorry for someone, or feeling sympathy from them, and that can certainly be part of it, but it's actually a much more rich and complex phenomenon that sort of shifts depending on context and depending on the scenario that we're in, that we're witnessing or that we're in at the time. And I call it the 4 dimensions of compassion, just because I like having a nice, easy framework to kind of understand all of it, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I'm excited to hear these 4.
Well, I think it's like there are 2 spectrums that we're going to think about. The first one is the self and the world. We feel compassion when we see a creature in pain, but we also need to be willing to flow that to ourselves. And when I am burned out from giving all the time, it means I've only been experiencing compassion in a limited range, and I need to experience it in 360 degrees, because I can't personally take on responsibility for all the suffering in the world. Nobody can, obviously. But I don't want to turn my back on it, because when I do that, I suffer. I suffer pain when I feel like there's suffering out there, but I'm not doing anything about it because I don't know what to do, or I'm too small, or I'm whatever. It really hurts to kind of feel like I can see the suffering, but I don't know what to do. So I need to navigate having compassion for myself as well in that moment, and recognize that I have a certain capacity. I am a human. I am going to feel pain when I witness suffering, and I can have compassion for that pain as well as thinking about whether I can do something to help. So I need to navigate my own bandwidth, my capacity, my energy levels, and my compassion levels. It's easy for us to feel kind of drained of compassion when we've been giving it all the time to everybody else, but we've left none for ourselves. So becoming really conscious and aware of how much can I actually do? Can I help every single cause that's out there that my heart might be called to? Probably not. I'm of a certain age. I'm not 20 anymore. I've got a business to run. I've got a household to run. I've got a certain number of things that are legitimate places where I put my energy. So I have to be tactical about how I put my compassion out in the world, how I pour it to myself, and also how I replenish my energy tanks so that I have enough to give. So when I have compassion for myself and I can prioritize my own need for replenishment and nourishment, I can actually do more for the world. And so self-compassion is not that we have this tendency to think, I can either do my thing out in the world, I can either give and be kind, etc., or I can be kind to myself. And it's like, no, we have to do both. We have to do both, and we have to find the sweet spot that is the right balance for us. But we can't leave out the self. It's really, really important, because if we don't have that, I in a previous career, I keep talking about my previous careers. It's so funny. One of my previous careers was as a union organizer, and I was helping young performers who were navigating a very difficult world where exploitation was rife, and young enthusiastic dancers would sign up for contracts there that were so damaging for them. Being able to teach those people how to look after themselves, how to protect themselves, was incredibly rewarding. And also, because I was doing this a couple of decades ago, it was extremely draining, and I got really burned out because I didn't also include myself in the compassion. And had I been able to do more self-compassion, and that means better boundaries for myself, it would have meant not doing work that I was doing on the weekends and after hours that I really needed to give myself more time off and not kind of work 80 hours a week. All of those things, had I taken better care of myself, I would have been able to stay doing that job for longer than I was able to do. So the same thing applies across the board, finding this balance between these two dimensions of the world and the self. And then the other two dimensions, and I have to acknowledge Kristen Neff's work in this, because she talks about this in her book, Fierce Self-Compassion, which I highly recommend, by the way. Compassion, and this applies to compassion whether we're flowing it out to the world or to ourselves. The other two dimensions are tender and fierce. And in our culture, we usually think about compassion as being soft and gentle and nourishing and nurturing and kind. And it absolutely needs to be all of those things, but it also needs to be able to be fierce. When you think about people like Robin Hood, stealing from the rich to give to the poor, that was through compassion. That was an act of compassion, but it was fierce. you know, jumping out of the forest with your sword drawn and stopping carriages going past and stealing the gold. That's pretty fierce stuff. That is not soft and gentle. It might be soft and gentle when the gold gets delivered to the villagers who are starving, but it has that fierce dimension to it. Or Mother Teresa, who famously would bully politicians and rich people into giving her money to look after the healing of the poor. She was notoriously fierce with what she did. There's a kind of unapologetic willingness to stand up for the person towards whom, or the people towards whom, you want to flow compassion. So standing up on behalf of someone, whether that's protesting in the street or preventing, ICE officers from taking children into custody, whatever it might be, those are also acts of compassion, and they have to have this kind of willingness to be ferocious sometimes. So if we think about those 4 dimensions, so we want to be tender and fierce to the world, people in the world, and we want to be tender and fierce when it comes to our own self-compassion. Suddenly it's like, oh my gosh, this is a superpower. This is not just a sort of convenient, fluffy. We like fluffy. Yes, fluffy is definitely has a place in compassion, but it's not the only dimension of compassion. When we have all of those and we can then say to ourselves, what am I choosing in this moment? Is this a moment where I need compassion? Absolutely. Is this a moment where I need this compassion to be tender? It might be. A lot of the time it is. Is this a moment where I need that compassion to be fierce? Because let's say I need to make sure I'm not taking that phone call from that person who always triggers my trauma. Yeah, that's a little bit of fierce self-compassion. In fact, I did it this morning myself. I have a colleague whom I dearly, dearly love, and she's going through some stuff at the moment. And I had a busy morning. I'm in Australia, so at the moment it's 9, 10 in the morning, and I had been on a Zoom call already. And I was doing the usual Thursday morning run, which is take the husband to work, stop in and get fuel, buy the newspaper, come back home, do a bunch of stuff, and then set up to be on the podcast, which is awesome. And I suddenly realized she had made a video call, and I knew exactly what it was about because I just kind of witnessed her going through some stuff. And there was a moment of going, okay, I definitely want to be able to be there with her in a compassionate way right now. I need to set the limit on how long I can spend with her because it can't be a spacious 90-minute conversation, which is what I would love to have done. But I can't do that right now. What I can do is 10 minutes to say, I love you. What you're going through is crap, and I totally understand that. And here's 1 or 2 suggestions for you, and I love you, and I have to go. And the reason I did it that way is because I also have compassion for my own need to be able to be fully present when I'm talking to your listeners, for example. I need to be fully present. I need to have had some food. I need to have had some water. I need space and time to get myself into a state of being able to be present. And I do that with my self-compassion. So I was able to balance the compassion for myself and what I need and the compassion for what this friend of mine needed. And that can take practice. It doesn't come automatically. And I think that's the key piece, is to start noticing where the world is calling for our compassion and we're ignoring it for we're ignoring ourselves, self-compassion for the sake of the world, or noticing where we're trying to use tender compassion when actually what is needed is fierce compassion, or vice versa. And it takes practice, and it takes a little bit of, because this is quite a complex concept. And in the moment, we may not have a lot of brain cells spare when the world is kind of calling at our door going, help, we need this. So the more we practice it, the more skilled we become at it, and letting go of any expectation at doing it perfectly.
Yeah, you know what I love about your example is the example you set. When we do that fierce self-compassion, you show other people how to do it in a not rude way, in a way that just amplifies, and I was sitting there thinking, that thing that we hear all the time, put your own mask on first, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yes.
It's more than just making sure you put your own mask on. When
Yes.
you think about when you're with your children, if you try to shove something in their face before you have it on, it's more fearful. If they
Mm.
watch you put it on your face, they are going to be so much more willing to do it themselves. So it's not just a one-sided thing. It's, yeah, take care of yourself, but also be the example of how to do that and that fear in the other person kind of comes down. And so what
Yeah.
you did was exactly that. It's like, I want to be here for you. Let me show you my boundary. Give you that guideline. And then here's how I can help you in this short time frame I have. What power, what an example. That's so beautiful.
Thank you. That is such a great reflection. And you're absolutely right. The more we model this for other people, the more easily they have access to it as well. And I teach this stuff. I mean, I run a workshop on this from time to time. And it's one thing to talk about it as a kind of theoretical, conceptual thing, which is what we're doing today. But it's quite something else to actually do it and then have someone else see you do it. I mean, this goes back to what I was saying earlier about our mirror neurons. It's literally what they're designed for. So from an evolutionary standpoint, the reason we have mirror neurons is because it allows us to see someone do something and then copy them in ways that non-primates don't seem to be able to do. There may be some birds who can do it, crows may be able to do it, but it is this capacity for saying, if I'm bringing fire to the tribe and showing you how to light fire, if your mirror neurons light up watching me light fire for the first time, rubbing my sticks together or doing flint sparks or whatever I'm doing, your mirror neurons light up as though your brain is doing it. Your brain acquires that knowledge so quickly. So this is why modeling behavior is such a powerful way to teach other people and to help them not just feel safe doing it, but actually get a sense of, oh, I see, that's how you do it. That's the kind of thing I might say. Janet said, I love you and I have a thing that I have to do in 15 minutes or whenever it was. And I actually said to her, I'm doing a podcast and I'm going to be on Zoom. I need to put some makeup on. And she, bless her, she went, I totally get that. Which I did not take as an insult at all because I know that she knows. And so being able to say, and the reason I know how to do that is partly because I've had other people do it to me. And I've been able to witness them go, I love you and I can give you this much time and then I have to go. And the other piece that's so good about this is not only is it modeling how to do it and making it safe for the other person to do, it's also a way of honoring that person. Because what you're saying, when I said that to my friend, I was effectively saying to her, I trust you to understand where I'm coming from and to understand what my needs are as well. It's a way of saying, I really honor you because I believed you to be the kind of human who is willing to give me space as well as receive good things from me. So yeah, that's a really great point. I really love that.
Yeah, we do. And you think about it, yeah, I always questioned why should have to put mine on first? Why is that so important? That's just kind of stupid. I want to, if somebody needs to survive, it's the kids. Well, if you really think about it as the example, we're really bred to kind of follow. Like, oh, that looks safe. I can do that. And when you
Yeah.
show that, and so that's why I personally feel like self-compassion is so important and learning to set those boundaries and learning to respond kindly to yourself and being
Yes.
that advocate for yourself. When's the last time, other than I know you was today already within the last few hours, but for our friend, when's the last time you really stood up for yourself and said,
Mhm.
"Hey, I think this discussion's getting a little heated. I would really love to go get my thoughts together. And why don't we resume this when things kind of calm down a little bit?" Why not stand up for yourself and allow that separation? But sometimes we don't have the words, we don't have the thoughts. And when you see someone else do it, you go, "Oh, I could do that." It's like,
Yes.
"Oh,
Yes.
that sounded
Yeah.
so good. Let me do it too."
And you know what I love about that example you just gave? What's really hidden in that example is that is a moment of self-compassion, but it is also compassion for the other person. Because when you choose, so if you are in a heated conversation, for example, especially if it's someone that you love, a loved one, a member of the family, or somebody
Or
that
your
you,
boss.
or your boss. I mean, having compassion for people in power is a sort of whole, that's a whole really kind of like, if doing it with a loved one, that's compassion 101. Doing it with somebody like a boss or a politician you don't agree with or whatever, that's a really advanced level of compassion that I think we have to have compassion for ourselves when we struggle to have compassion for them. Um, so I think that's kind of a whole, that might be a whole 'nother call. But what I do wanna say is when you have compassion, when you say to the other person, "Things are getting heated, I'm gonna go away, collect my thoughts," et cetera, et cetera, you're also showing compassion to them because you're saying, "If I stay here, I can feel my temper rising. I can feel I can feel that I might say the inappropriate thing, or I might harm this person, or I don't know how this conversation's going to unfold, but if I stay here in a heightened state of emotion, chances are it's not going to end well for either of us." And so these are the moments where our self-compassion can also be an act of compassion for the other person, even if that's not our intention in that red hot moment. So even if in that red hot moment, all you're doing is kind of going, "I got to get out of here. I have to go and cool off." The impact is that ultimately you've also saved the other person from whatever that conversation could have ended up like. And honestly, that includes your boss because, bosses are human too. You can see me stumbling over this as a former union organizer. I've had lots of I've had lots and lots and lots of positive relationship with bosses. It's just that in that job, I usually only got to meet the nasty ones. So I'm aware of my own cognitive bias on that one. Um, but the compassion. This is why I love the conversation around compassion. Is that it's not a simple one-way thing. It comes with these dimensions whether we like it or not. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like in that when you're in that interaction with someone, you're having an interaction with the world and you're having an interaction with yourself. And when you do things that cool the temperature, you're being compassionate to both parties, you're not giving it all to them. You're definitely being compassionate to yourself, but they also get some benefit from it.
In a good way for me to understand when it's kind of tipped that scale is when the outcome or the thing I was trying to discuss is no longer the point. It's now I want to be
Mhm.
right. As
Yes,
soon as
so
I
much.
cross that border into,
Yes.
I'm trying to prove I'm right, I know I've now need to step back and honor that, we are not going to be able to solve this problem as long as I want to be right.
Yeah.
Let me go contemplate your point of view, and
Mhm.
I will come back and we can talk about this again later. Because the second I start wanting to be right, I'm no longer compassionate.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting. One of the things that I do, I'm a hugely passionate about social justice in all kinds of different ways. And so over the years, I've become involved in all kinds of causes. And I do tend to look out at the world and kind of go, "Oh, there's too much. I can't do it all." And having compassion for myself and going, "It's okay, Janet. You don't have to do it all. You're not the soloist here. You're in a very, very, very large choir. You're allowed to take a breath." That's one of my favorite analogies when I'm thinking about taking compassionate action through things like a social justice lens is I'm not the soloist. If you're in a choir, if you've ever sung in a choir, for anyone who's ever sung in a choir, especially if you've sung classical music, I once performed in Beethoven's Ninth and as an alto, and there is a section there where both the altos and the sopranos hold impossibly long notes. There's a note that that section of the choir is expected to hold, and it just goes forever and ever and ever. There's no way on earth that you could do it as a all in one breath. So members of the choir choose the different times to take a breath. I will hold the note while my neighbor takes a breath, and she'll hold the note while I take a breath, and we sort of work it out between us, or it kind of works more or less organically. And what the audience hears is a seamless held note that goes for the full length of the note. And it's the same with this kind of thing. And what I've found really interesting is that when I slow it down and I respond with compassion to somebody who is confused about a situation or being kind of wanting to be argumentative, I'm not there to change people's minds. I mean, I'm not sort of hanging out there trying to convert people, because there's no point. But when somebody is kind of showing that maybe there's some confusion, when I can respond with compassion and a little bit of information, very often that person will come back to me and say, "I didn't know that. Can you tell me more?" And it opens a window. It opens a window to understanding that wouldn't open if all I did was go on the attack. And this is, again, part of how we do compassion strategically, how we take strategic, compassionate action out in the world. And it takes skill. It's not something that you master overnight at all. I can remember an occasion where I witnessed a member of the local Aboriginal community here who's very active. She's a singer, and she had performed at an event, and somebody kind of attacked her on social media and made some comments about, why do Aboriginal people always get all the work, kind of. It was that kind of comment. And my friend invited this woman to come and have an afternoon tea with her and chat about it. And this woman took up the invitation and then ultimately became a really good ally for the local Indigenous community. And it was a beautiful example where, had Deb not responded with compassion, this would have turned into just a fight between two people wanting to be right. But because she was able to respond with compassion in a way, and a lot of graciousness as well, by the way, I might add, which I may not have been capable of, I have to acknowledge. I said to my friend, I love how you do that. I'm not sure I could pull it off. And she said, this is the only way that we actually connect as human beings, is to have this willingness to be compassionate. I mean, if the person who'd been invited to afternoon tea had said no, then that would have been the end of it. But she said yes. And so it was this beautiful, beautiful moment where there was compassion for each other. And I know that had this person gone on the attack, decided to go on the attack instead of accepting the invitation, my friend would have simply blocked her, because she has compassion for herself as well. So
Yeah.
it is such a power for good in the world. And when we focus that power for good on ourselves, we become even more capable of bringing it back to the world.
One of the things you just briefly mentioned was keeping our tanks full. How do we do
Yes.
that?
Ooh, I have there are two different mechanisms, two different methods that I like to teach people. May I teach you both of them?
Please do. I've
Awesome.
got my notes out.
Excellent. All right. So the first thing I will say, I've said about, how sometimes it all feels too much. And no human being can create sufficient compassion for what the world needs. We just can't. I'm just one person. I can't manufacture sufficient compassion for the whole world and for all the suffering. But what I can do is I can tap into an infinite source of compassion. And that's, whether we call it the universe, the cosmos, the divine source, whatever we call it, there is this something non-physical that's bigger than we are. And we can tap into that as an infinite source of compassion. And one of the simplest ways to do that, I call it feeding the fish. And the reason I use that metaphor is, it's like we're all an eternal being. We're an eternal being that came to Earth to have a human adventure and to live a human life. So in a little bit, it's a little bit like, before we arrived here, we were swimming around in the energy ocean with all the other energy fishes, and we came to planet Earth. We're like a fish that's come to dry land. And we have this connection back to the ocean, and we will go back to the ocean when we die. But while we're here, we sort of feel a bit parched, a bit homesick. And we can reconnect and feed our inner fish, our little eternal self, that part that is where compassion has its source. We can feed that every time we reconnect to that sense of something larger than we are. So the easiest way to do this is to think about experiences that trigger a sense of awe and wonder, whether it's looking at a beautiful sunset or sitting in a church listening to a choir or looking at the tiny fingernails on a baby or connecting with nature in some way. And for some people, it's prayer and meditation. For some people, it is more a sense of just surrendering to the beauty of the world. And when we've made that connection, we can just simply imagine receiving an abundance of compassion into our hearts and replenishing our tanks so that we're not the ones trying to manufacture all this compassion, that we're actually simply receiving it from whatever the thing is that's larger than we are as a conduit for that compassion. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that is unlimited source of energy
Yes.
that when you
Yes.
acknowledge and plug into, we can do it through meditation, prayer.
Yes.
Just some people need to run and go into nature. However
Yes.
you feel that, that's filling up. That's giving you that amazing energy to keep going forward.
Yeah, exactly. And all we're doing is, all I'm suggesting is that we do that and then we kind of add in the intentionality to say, I'm ready to receive infinite supply of compassion. And let the universe, just imagine the universe is pouring it into you and it just fills you up again. It's such a beautiful way to do it. And it's really easy. It doesn't take long. It's just a few minutes a day. We can do it first thing in the morning. We can do it in the afternoon. We can do it whenever we feel the need. That's my kind of big picture go-to. But there's another one that is much more kind of gamified. It's really fun. And it sounds like it's a giving compassion, but actually it's a way of also receiving it. Or rather boosting the levels. Again, you're receiving it from the universe. And I call it the blessing game. And all it means is that you, as you're out and about in your day, or you can do it when you're watching TV or characters on TV or in a movie. But the fun way to do it is to wander around. Like if you're going to the grocery store, I will be going to the grocery store after this, and I will be doing it when I do that. And you just notice a complete stranger and you say to yourself, but you direct it to them. So you're not actually going up to anyone and doing this because that could be weird. But you say to yourself, may you be blessed and may all your dreams come true. And the beauty of this is that you don't know that person. You don't know what their dreams are. You might actually disapprove of their dreams. You might think their dreams are a bit weird. So, for example, we have this sort of small but loud group in Australia doing a bunch of anti-immigration stuff at the moment. And it's kind of like, your dream is a white Australia? Yeah, that's not my dream. I don't approve of that. But that's a surface dream. The deeper dreams that most humans have are for love, safety, and the feeling of belonging. And for some people, they express it through things like, I'm only going to feel safe and like I belong if I get rid of all the people in Australia who aren't white, which is, it's so ridiculous. It makes me laugh. I can look at that person, and this is kind of the advanced level. I can knowingly look at somebody who is doing that kind of neo-Nazi stuff and go, may you be blessed and may your dreams come true. And I can do that and mean it, but that's because I've been practicing this a long time. And because I know that their deeper dreams are for love, safety, and the feeling of belonging. And I genuinely want that for them. I think their idea of how to achieve that is vastly misguided and harmful, but I can still have compassion for them. So with this one, I always say to people, start out with the low-hanging fruit. Strangers in a grocery store, The other one is when you're stuck in traffic. This is so good. Oh my gosh, when you're stuck in traffic, you just go car by car and you look at all the people in the car, and for each one of them you go, may you be blessed and may your dreams come true. May you be blessed and may all your dreams come true. May you be blessed and may all your dreams come true. It's kind of like Oprah going, you get a car and you get a car and you get a car, except you're doing it with blessings. You're doing it with blessings and it feels so good. I'm not kidding. If you're feeling low in energy, if you're feeling kind of meh and blah about your day, this will cheer you up like nothing else. It is so good because every time you bestow a blessing, it's like you're immersed in a tank, a vat of compassion and blessing, and you end up with and it sticks to you as well. So I like I said, this is kind of, you can turn it into such a fun game. It doesn't have to be. The other thing I want to say about this is it doesn't have to be. You don't have to have any particular faith. In fact, I usually recommend kind of depending. Look, I'm not going to tell anyone how to practice their faith, but I will usually say to someone, the lighter you can keep this, the better it is, the better it works, because it's a reminder that blessings don't have to drain you. It doesn't have to drain you to or be difficult or be complicated. It's just simply looking at a complete stranger and saying, may you be blessed and may all your dreams come true. And because they're a stranger, especially when they're not going to be in your world for more than 2 minutes, the girl in the checkout or the guy driving past you or whoever it is, there's a lightness to it that is so delicious and it feels so good. So I highly recommend that one as well. I think both of these, you can use them together, not at the same time, but you can use both of them. You can use one of them. You can, have a play. That would be my recommendation.
Do something kind of like that so I can just expand it. But when, that hurried person is running on the road, I'll just kind of send love and
Yeah.
peace. I
Yeah.
just like send love and peace and, let them feel love and peace. And, why not? May you be blessed. It's kind of the same, but
Mhm.
I've left out the all your dreams come true, and it is,
Mhm.
may you get to work on time because right now I think that's what you want,
Yeah. And what I love about doing it this way, the sort of when I was first learning how to do this, I learned this from this technique from my mentor Lisa Hayes. So I have to give her a shout out for this one, but I've adapted it. And one of the things I've started doing after I'd become practiced at it, I started setting myself a challenge to see if I could drive in peak hour traffic and do it for every car that passed. And what that did was it kept me out of their business. It meant like I wasn't feeling like I didn't have time to get involved in, I wonder what that person's dream is. I wonder what they really want. I wonder what this. I mean, when you've got the luxury of the time to do that, that's kind of fun to play with as well. But for me, there's something really valuable in being able to go, I'm going to do as many blessings as I can on this 5-minute drive to the grocery store. I'm going to, if I can nail a blessing for every driver of every car, not every passenger, that's too much. But if I can do it for every car that I pass, the ones that are waiting to turn a corner and the ones that are driving past me and so on. And I don't recommend anybody try and start with that because I guarantee you'll drive into a traffic pole. You'll, because it's so distracting. But if you start when you're actually stationary in traffic at the traffic lights, that's a really fun one to do. And it gives it this, because I think there's something like the lightness of champagne that is also nice to experience when we're thinking about something like compassion, because compassion can feel like it has to be soft and slow and cautious and patient. And I'm kind of like, yes, sometimes that's exactly what is needed. And sometimes it can be light and fleeting and like just a brush, the brush of an angel wing rather than being held by the angel's wings. And I think the more we expand all of the dimensions of how we play with compassion, the more it becomes a natural power that we can wield like a, a sword of truth and a shield of justice, rather than a passive thing that makes us feel like we're not in control. I think it's a I mean, I'm still playing with this and exploring exactly how it unfolds. Um, and I think that's partly because we've got a lot of, philosophers have been talking about this for millennia. And particularly when we look at the ancient philosophers 2,000 years ago, they were not dealing with a world where we are bombarded with headlines 24/7 and, in the middle of this global news cycle that constantly chews us up emotionally. And anything that we can do to feel as skilled as possible when it comes to compassion, and particularly self-compassion. But I think self-compassion and compassion for the world are inextricably linked. I don't think we can successfully do compassion for the world without the compassion for the self. I think it's an essential ingredient. It has to be brought along. Or no, not even that. It has to be a foundational piece in order to be able to do compassionate work out in the world. So, sorry, thank
Yeah.
you for coming for my TED Talk. I feel like I've just been on a soapbox. I went
Hey,
into a
but
complete rant.
you know, it was very productive. I think it helped me. So we talked about what is compassion. We've talked about who needs compassion, how we give compassion, how to be an example, how to refill your tank, how to make sure others are also just unknowingly receiving that compassion. And I think you've hit everything I could even imagine that we could talk about. No, not in a bad way, but I think you've hit everything. And so absolutely stunning rant and or whatever you wanted to call it. So
Thank you. I
great.
appreciate that.
Well, it's been a while since you've been on, so I'd love for you to share a little bit about your business, what you do, and how somebody could get a hold of you. I know you're on my BFF Coaches Network, so they could go there, but I know you have
Yes.
some direct links also.
I do. Well, probably the easiest way for people to find me, I have a publication on Substack, which is called Wreaking More Joy. That's WREAKING. We usually use that word to mean wreaking havoc, but I'm wreaking more joy in the world. And in my business, I specifically help women who feel like they've lost the joy of their purpose and their mission in life to kind of regain it or to start a new thing. Um, but I also work with, compassion is a really core part of the work that I do. And from time to time, I run a program. I have it as a standalone course as well, which is called Unleash Compassion. And people can find that at unleashcompassion.com. So it is such an important ingredient in all of the work that I do with my clients, and it's also something that I won't say that I have mastered it completely in my life. Um, I'm reminded of a quote, and I can't remember where this came from, so I apologize to whoever it was that first said it. Um, but I really like this idea that this becoming our true selves and becoming more self-compassionate and whatever it is we're working towards, you cannot get it wrong and you'll never get it done. It's kind of like it's always a work in progress. I'm never going to be saying to somebody, "Oh, I've completely mastered compassion." Um, but I think we can all of us become more and more skilled and more deliberate and intentional about how we play with compassion, how we use compassion, and how we experience compassion.
It's beautiful. So if you had to narrow it down to just one thing, what should
Yes.
we try this week? That one thing.
Oh, I'm going to recommend the blessing game. So everyone needs to go do at least once this week when you're running errands, whatever it might be. I like to start this either when I'm wandering around the grocery store or when I'm stuck in traffic. So if I'm sitting at the traffic lights, and practice the blessing game. May you be blessed and may all your dreams come true. And that's it. That's all you have to do. It's so easy.
Write
I'm
it
a
on
big
a
fan.
sticky,
I'm a big
put it
fan.
on your visor. It'll be right there in case you forgot what the words
Oh,
were.
I love that. I
So
love that. Make
you'll
it a
have it.
screensaver on your phone. I love that as well.
Oh, yeah, that would work too.
Yeah,
Oh,
cool.
so beautiful. Thank you so much, Janet, for joining us today. I always love talking with you, and I know our friend loves listening to you too. So thank you so much. And friend, thank you for joining. We are not medical or mental licensed professionals. We're here for entertainment. People have been down a path and have learned how to maneuver and just want to help you along your path get to your goals and your dreams. So thank you for joining and have a beautiful day.
Are you tired of waking up exhausted? You are not alone. If you're looking to take your life back, let's start with the simple step of adjusting your self-talk. Stay tuned for the next episode with your host, Lara Jane. Remember to follow the show so you don't miss a next simple step that you can use to feel more confident. And please leave an honest review.